Okay, welcome back. We've got another Bible study here, just a theory we're kicking around here. This is the Millennium, and it's going to be an analysis of the judgment upon Azazel and Satan at both the flood and in 70 AD. So, the purpose of this study, we're going to discuss how a first century reader may have interpreted the Millennium passage in Revelation chapter 20. In our method, we're going to compare the narrative of the flood from the book of Enoch with the narrative of the millennium in Revelation chapter 20. We're going to look at the judgment upon Satan and Azazel that took place during both the flood and in 70 AD. Note this discussion is from a preterist perspective, meaning we believe that Jesus Christ came in judgment in 70 AD. So, why this topic? As we all know, there are many different ways of interpreting the millennium, and this is just going to add to the list of possibilities. So, big observations here are that the binding of Azazel, which took place in First Enoch, actually took place as a footnote to the flood narrative, and the binding of Satan, as we all know in Revelation 20, it takes place as a footnote to the narrative regarding the events of 70 AD at the judgment on Jerusalem. So that's very key here, those differences. Note in previous videos on this channel, we've already shown that Satan and Azazel, they're synonymous. You can check the channel for just do a search under Satan, or even one of those studies had to do with the Day of Atonement, and that's going to come up later too. And we've also discussed different interpretations of the millennium. Just again, go to this channel and search millennium. You'll find a video or two there. So here's our passages today. We're going to look at the similarities of the two judgment narratives. And here it is from First Enoch chapter 10. And keep in mind, this is speaking of events related to the flood. And here's how the narrative goes. And then it says in verse 1, Then said the Most High, the Holy and Great One, spake, and sent Uriel, the son of Lamech, and said to him, Go to Noah, and tell him in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Judea, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see the light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire, and heal the earth, which the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague, and that all the children of men may not perish through all the secret things that the watchers have disclosed and have taught their sons, and the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. So that's, again, is our passage from First Enoch, and again, that had to do with the flood, and it's going to be almost identical to our passage here in Revelation 20. We've got a couple of sections of Revelation 20 we're going to look at here. Again, this is speaking of the events that were to follow the judgment in 70 AD. This is Revelation 20, chapter 1. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. He laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal on him, so that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years were finished. But after these things he must be released for a little while. Now, when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison, and will go out to deceive the nations which are on the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and surrounded the camp of the saints in the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they will be tormented day and night forever. Okay, so our quick observation, these passages from both First Enoch and Revelation 20 are almost identical. So the question is, what would the first century reader have been thinking after he or she read Revelation chapter 20? We know that the first century readers were familiar with First Enoch. We can get this from Second Peter, from Jude, and even Jesus himself made reference to the book of Enoch. You can look at Matthew, Mark, and Luke. He references First Enoch chapter 15, and he even refers to it as scripture, which is a whole nother argument, but that's not for this video here. So if Azazel was cast into darkness forever, according to First Enoch, and yet Satan, an adversary, shows up later in the biblical narrative and receives a similar fate, almost an identical fate in Revelation 20, how was the original reader to understand this? Was it to be understood that the adversary was literally bound forever in either passage? I'm just going to propose that, this is not likely. And right now, we're going to consider the Jubilee. We've talked about this on previous videos too. If you just do a channel search for Jubilee, this ties into events of 70 AD. In that video, we attached Jubilee to the events of 70 AD. Again, that's the Day of Atonement video series as well. But in hindsight, it seems applicable to apply the Jubilee not only to the events of 70 AD, but also to the events of the flood as well. And a note here, I'm not saying that Jubilee was a law prior to the flood because it wasn't commanded until after the flood. It's simply a suggestion that the flood is a picture or a type of Jubilee, just as 70 AD was. And summary of the Jubilee, what happens basically, it's kind of like hitting the reset button or a starting over. Everyone starts off on an even page. Everyone was to return to his own possession. There was forgiveness of debts, just a return to everyone to his own possession. So, and as far as the flood in 70 AD, the wicked were destroyed and the righteous were saved. The wicked were into eternal condemnation or death, and righteous were brought up to heaven, if you want to believe that, as far as the preterist viewpoint, depending on what you're when you believe the resurrection or rapture takes place. But again, all a picture of Jubilee. So in conclusion, this discussion is an additional reason just to consider the possibility that the millennium was not to be taken literally by its original readers. That means the duration itself, 1,000 years, was not to be taken literally. And also the idea that Satan or Azazel, or any adversary for that matter, was destroyed forever. This was not to be taken literally. The first century reader would have read Revelation 20 and said, hey, this has happened before. And again, it's a cycle. The narrative of the millennium is understood by the original readers. It may have served to simply confirm, there's nothing new under the sun. There's always going to be an adversary. The flood and the judgment in 70 AD were a picture of Jubilee. Wicked were punished, righteous were rewarded. After the flood in Jubilee, there was a new beginning. However, the wickedness of man began to grow shortly after the flood. And after 70 AD, again, a picture of Jubilee, it's the same. 70 AD, it was a new beginning. However, since then, we can all attest to the fact that the wickedness of man has grown. So there will always be an adversary, a Satan, and that's another thing we get in a study. Satan, it simply means an adversary. It doesn't have to be a personal, name of a personal being, but there's an adversary working against us during our time here on earth. And for Christians at our death, the adversary for each of us will be cast into the lake of fire. Perhaps, maybe just consider this as an individual Jubilee for all of us when we reach the end of our time on this earth. And then we look for a new heavens and a new earth, as 2 Peter said, nevertheless we, according to his promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. So again, the millennium, I think it was more of a literary device for John, the author of Revelation, as Jesus was giving him the revelation there, that just to let John know that there were things going to happen after his generation. 70 AD wasn't going to be the end of the world. There's still going to be life after this. It's going to be a cycle. The adversary is going to have to be defeated. And again, more of a literary device, not to be taken literally. So I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. And until next time, contend earnestly for the faith which was once for all delivered to the saints, and God bless.